You understand your patterns. You've understood your patterns for years, yet they are still running your life. That is not a you problem. That is a level problem. And today we're going to be getting into it. Welcome to the Becoming Her podcast with Coach Dan. I'm Coach Dan. I'm a certified mindset coach, NLP coach and practitioner, timeline therapist and hypnotherapist. And this is the podcast where we don't just talk about transformation, we walk through it. This is episode 1, and I want to start at the beginning. Not at the beginning of the work, the beginning of understanding why the work hasn't been working. Because if you've been reading the books, you've been journaling, you've been watching the YouTube videos, you've been reading, you've done therapy, and something is still not shifting at the level that you want it to, I want you to hear something today that changes how you understand that. It's not because you haven't been working hard enough, and it is not because change is not possible for you. It is just because the work has been happening at the wrong level. By the end of this episode, you are going to understand exactly what I mean by that, and you are going to have one clear thing to do differently this week. Let's get into it. I want to describe something to you, and I want you to tell me if this sounds familiar to you. You have a pattern. Maybe it's self-sabotage. You build momentum, you get close to something that really matters for you, and you find a way to slow it down or stop it altogether. Maybe it's overthinking. Maybe your mind runs through every single avenue, every single possible scenario, every single detail, every possible decision until you are exhausted and you still haven't chosen. Maybe it's people pleasing, maybe it's shrinking yourself, always putting yourself last, or starting things with a real commitment and stopping when things start to get real. You know this pattern and you've known it for a long time. You might know where it came from. You may have traced it back to a specific time in your life, an experience, a person. You've done the reflection and you have the self-awareness that most people spend years trying to develop. And yet the pattern is still there. Not exactly how it was, maybe a little quieter, maybe a little less frequent, but it's still there. And it's still appearing at the moments that it matters the most. Still doing what it always does and still holding you just below the life that you are capable of. If that is you, stay with me because I'm going to show you the thing that changes everything. Not just another strategy for the pattern, the actual reason why it's still there. Here's the thing that I want you to understand. Awareness is the beginning, but it's not the destination. Most personal development, most coaching, most therapy, most self-help, it takes you to the awareness stage, but it stops there. You understand your patterns, you can describe your patterns, you can even see it happening in real time. And the thing is, the assumption under all of it is that seeing the pattern is actually going to change the pattern, but it does not by itself. And here's why. Your patterns, they don't live in your conscious mind, they live underneath it, in your unconscious and your subconscious mind. In the beliefs that were formed long before you had the language to question them. In the emotional memories that still carry charge, even when the situation is decades in the past. In your nervous system responses that automatically fire before the conscious thought even begins. See, the thing about awareness gives you information. It gives you content about yourself, your situation, your pattern, your challenge. But information alone doesn't rewire the system that generates it. I want you to think of it this way. Imagine a smoke alarm going off in your house. You know exactly where the alarm is going off. You can understand why it's going off. You even know exactly which room the smoke is in. But knowing all of this doesn't put out the fire. You have to go into the room and deal with what is actually burning. Awareness is the alarm, but the fire is somewhere deeper. And that deeper place is where the work needs to happen. So I want you to know there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. So many women that I coach, they come to me and they think it's a capable problem. You have shown many times in your life just how capable you are. And this is why I created the breakthrough method. I created the breakthrough method after 14 years of working with women that were doing all the right things. The journaling, the therapy, the coaching, the courses, and they were still finding themselves stuck at that same invisible ceiling. And I kept seeing it over and over and over again. And what was really happening is that the work was being done at the wrong level. It was working on the alarm and nobody was going into the room. The breakthrough method has 4 stages: awareness, access, rewire, and embody. Most approaches, they give you the first one and call it a transformation. The breakthrough method, it takes you through all 4 so that you get a whole 360 transformation. Awareness, we've talked about this. You cannot change what you're not willing to see. And in the awareness stage, this is about seeing your pattern clearly, crystal clear. bringing what is unconscious up to your conscious view. This is essential. It is the start, but it's not the finish. Access. This is where things get really interesting. Access is about uncovering the root. Not just describing the pattern, but understanding where the pattern actually comes from. Because every single pattern that you have that holds you back was created for a reason. And your job is to understand what that reason is. At some point in your life, your subconscious made a decision, a rule that it believed was keeping you safe. Someone who constantly overthinks, they may have formed a belief somewhere along the way that says, if I make a wrong decision, something bad will happen. So the mind keeps spinning, it keeps checking, keeps going through all of the options, not because it is broken, because it's trying to protect you from an outcome that it learned to fear. Someone who sabotages just before the breakthrough, they may be carrying around a belief that says, success makes me a target. Or if I get what I want, I may lose something that's more important to me. So every time it gets close to that, the subconscious does what the subconscious has been programmed to do. It pulls you back. These are not character flaws. These are just protection mechanisms. And the thing is, they were created to keep you safe, and they worked for a while. The problem is the version of you that needed that protection no longer exists. And this is why most women feel stuck. I'm going to go into that in another video. You have outgrown the rule. The subconscious just hasn't caught up yet. Rewire, one of my favorite. Once the root has been accessed, we can change it. And this is where my background as an NLP coach and practitioner, mindset coach, hypnotherapist, timeline therapist comes in. Rewiring, it's not about positive thinking. It's not about repeating affirmations until you feel different. It's about creating genuine internal shifts in your beliefs, in your emotional responses, in the way the subconscious codes the past, so that the system that generates the pattern starts to operate differently. When this stage is done properly, most women, they describe what happens as emotional relief. Not because something dramatic has happened, because something that has held enormous weight for years has finally been put down. Embody. Embody is the stage that most people often skip, because rewiring, that creates the shift, but embody makes it permanent. And this is where the change moves from something you are doing to something you simply just are. When the new belief stops being something that you stop trying to hold and starts being the lens through which you naturally see yourself and the world through. Awareness, access, rewire, and embody. And I just want to note here, in the awareness and the access stage, most women, you have these stages down pat, especially if you're really self-aware. You know what your actual pattern is, you know why the pattern happens, and then what happens is most women, they don't do the rewiring in the embody stage and they don't make those internal shifts, and in the embodiment, they don't make it permanent. Most personal development just gives you the first one, but the breakthrough method gives you all four. I want to tell you something that happened recently because it describes everything we've just been speaking about. A client came to me, she'd been working on herself for years. She'd done the therapy, she'd done journaling, she'd watched the YouTube videos, but she was still stuck. She had read more books on mindset and personal development that most people had in a lifetime, and yet she was still stuck. She was one of the most self-aware women that I had ever worked with, yet she was still stuck in the same patterns. Not because the other work had failed, but because none of the other work she was doing had gone all the way to the root to understand what was really going on underneath the surface. It had never taken her to access and never found the original belief underneath them. It had never rewired anything, so there was nothing ever to embody. A couple of weeks into working with her, she said something that a lot of my clients said to me. She could not believe how quick things started to shift for her. That the things that she was trying to change for years has actually started to move. And I explained to her, it's not that things happen quick, it only felt quick because we was finally working on the right level. Change doesn't take years when you go below the surface. And I've been preaching this for years. And if you've seen my lives, then you know I tell you all the time, if you really want to have lasting change, change what is going on underneath the surface. And when you work on every level of the mind simultaneously, conscious thought, unconscious belief, your emotional memory, your nervous system, the shift that you've been reaching for becomes available much faster than expected. Not because it is easy, because it is finally happening on the level that it needs to happen. One thing to do this week. Before we close out the episode, I want to tell you all about the Elevated Women's Path program. If what you've heard today has resonated with you, please go and check out the Elevated Women's Path program. And this is going to give you a whole 360 transformation, and it is based on the breakthrough method. And it goes through all the common issues that most women are facing: the overthinking, confidence, breaking your patterns. It's got an identity recode masterclass in there, overcoming your limiting beliefs. So it gives you a full 360 transformation. And in true Coach Dan style, there's going to be homework. So I want you to do one thing this week. It's not a list, it's not a framework, it's just one thing. I want you to choose just one pattern, just one, not 10, just one, that you have been aware of for a long time, but it still keeps showing up in your life. Not the hardest one, the most familiar one. The one you could describe in one sentence if someone was to ask you. Now, I want you to ask yourself a question that most people will never ask themselves. Not why do I do this? You most probably have an answer to that already. Ask instead, what is this pattern protecting me from? What does this pattern keep me safe from experiencing? What would I need to face, feel, or risk if this pattern was not there? I want you to write it down, don't edit it. In the transparency is the healing. Be honest. This is a time for you to be honest with yourself. I want you to make a note on this journey that this is a very personal journey, and this work can absolutely be done in private. No one needs to know what your internal thoughts are saying. This is for you to get to the root cause of the pattern and get rid of the pattern altogether. Be honest and write down the first answer that comes to you, because that answer and the thing that it is protecting you from is the door to the root. It's the beginning of the access stage, and just naming it honestly, even to yourself alone, is the beginning of the real work. You don't have to solve it this week. You just have to see it clearly. And that is awareness doing its thing. It's not the destination, it's just the beginning. If this episode landed for you and you felt yourself nodding along and saying, that's me, that's me, that's me, or you felt something shift inside of you, I want to invite you to take one more step today. I have a free quiz called What Elevated Woman Are You? It takes about 3 minutes, and it specifically tells you what elevated woman you are and where you are in your journey. It also has a free guide so that you can start working on yourself today. And if you're ready to go deeper than the quiz and take the breakthrough method all the way through, then we have the Elevated Women's Path program. Everything I've talked about today, the awareness, the access, the rewire, and the embody, is the foundation of everything I do. Thank you for spending this time with me. I have no words. I've managed to amass quite a big audience on TikTok, and I'm so grateful for my community, and I'm so excited to be building one over here now as well. I truly feel like this is the work that I was built to do, and I don't take it for granted that you showed up to do it with me. So until next time, remember, the woman you are becoming, she is not waiting to be ready. She is waiting for you to decide.